that track was unreal. The first time I pretty much drove out the gate and went down the thing, it was probably the first time ever in a race car that I've actually dropped my nuts. It was...
Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of the Stagger Tapes. Last night I had the awesome opportunity to sit down and talk with Hayden Williams, discussing the ins and outs of his career. I've been a big Hayden Williams fan since I was in quarter midgets, so to sit down and talk through the history of what I remember and what he remembers was really cool. As always, this podcast is brought to you by James Selwyn Photography. James's equipment has brought the quality of this podcast up tenfold, and I hope you're all enjoying it. This week, we finally got verified on Spotify and the Apple Podcast app. So if you're listening to this on YouTube, just search the Stagger Tapes on either one of those two platforms and get amongst it. Without further ado, here's a 56-minute long interview with Hayden Williams. Alright, so we're here on episode 3 of the Stagger Tapes with Mr. Excitement, Hayden Williams, fresh off an hour-long trip from work back to the BSL headquarters. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Hayden. It's good to see someone, in New Zealand trying to start something like this in Speedway. So yeah, it's good to be here, and let's get it going.
Cool, I'm looking forward to it. You were a part of the handful of guys who came from the quad bike side of motorsport. So a lot of us mainly just started in either quarter midgets or go-karts. But you actually came from the quad bike side, so you showed your potential early. You had a third in your first national title attempt. So why don't you just take me through your journey from quads into your quarter midget career and the karting that you did as a kid?
Yeah, so pretty much Dad bought me a quad when I was 4 years old, but obviously I'd been around Speedway from when I was 2 years old, I think, hanging around with Jamie McDonald, Bruce McDonald, and all them as my dad. He crewed for them when they had both their TQs. So I've been around Speedway a long time, and obviously Dad wanted to see me get into that side of things, so bought me a little 50cc Suzuki at I think 4 years old I was, and took me down to the beach where we lived in Stanmore Bay, and just sort of back when that was actually legal to do. Now it's you got no chance of bloody getting on the beach. So
yeah, for sure.
Just made some jumps for me and made a few little berms in the sand with a spade, and sort of told me a few things to do. And then I guess starting from a young age, you've got a long time to really get good at what you do. So it was really good to obviously start there, and I'm forever thankful for Dad getting me into it at such a young age, and it's just sort of gone on from there. And I think my first race meeting was obviously I couldn't start racing till I was I think 5 years old. Had my first race meeting back Pukekohe Harrisville. I think I ran 4th, I think, from memory, going back a long way now. This was back in 1996, I think it was. And ended up, running more races, and went down to Taupo, and for my first New Zealand title, I think I ran 2nd or 3rd. I'm pretty sure I've got a 2nd place trophy at home. The shape of the shape of Lake Taupo is actually a real cool trophy, and
that's cool.
That was one of my obviously fondest memories. And that getting your first podium as a little kid was quite exciting, and everything just sort of followed on from there. Started going through the ranks and moving up the classes, and eventually won 3 national titles. In the 50cc class. Then in the 100cc class, I won 2 national titles, and the last one was back in 2001 at Kalkopakova, actually, that the club, the North Harbour Mini Motocross Club that my dad ran back then, they put on an exceptional event, and that was my last New Zealand title I won, and that was the last year that I actually raced quads. And I sort of outgrow the class. I was too young to move to the juniors side of the next step up, junior side of things. I think would have been 10 at that point, and the age gap to move up to the next class was somewhere around 13 years old, I believe. And so that's when we decided to sort of go down the Speedway route, and a lot of other people did. Back in my last couple of years of racing quads, I raced against the likes of Shane Van Gisbergen and the O'Connor boys. Obviously Ryan ran sprint cars and Shane ran TQs as well, so I've raced amongst being with Shane Van Gisbergen, now he's in V8 Supercars, so to race against that guy back then and see what he's doing now is pretty exceptional. But the quad life was good to me. I did reasonably well, but back then there was, Dad made sure I had the best equipment that he could provide me to give me the best shot at winning, and I'm sort of thankful that everything started that way, and yeah, here I am now, sitting here talking to you. So it's obviously it's been a good journey, and yeah, I mean, quarter midgets was the next stepping stone for me, and yeah, I'm sure you've got something you'd want to elaborate on that, but
yeah, for sure. So was it just that age that prevented you from going down the motocross route? Because I mean, it sounds like in quads the next logical step anyway seems to be motocross. So what actually changed your mind going back to speedway?
Yeah, obviously, Dad had a speedway background. He raced TQs and outlaw TQs with wings on them in Mary back in the day. So that was something seeing photos of him racing and stuff was something I obviously looked up to doing. And just being around speedway my whole life, even while I was doing quads, I was always at speedway helping out Jamie and Bruce and crewing for them and doing things here and there. It's as I say, I've been going to speedway since I was 2 years old, and it's been in my blood. It's in my dad's blood, and that's the sort of route we went. But obviously there was a 2-year age gap where I couldn't race quads, so I had to sort of fill in with something, moving up to the next age group. So quarter midgets was, we thought, the way to go. We bought a quarter midget off I believe Zach Kennedy, and it was his old man bought the chassis, and it was it wasn't anything special at the time, but it was good for my first season, and then sort of everything took off from there.
You're quite successful in your time in quarter midgets, though. I believe from memory, I think you had a good shot at the CTRA New Zealand title that you guys ran back then as well.
Yeah, obviously we didn't race for New Zealand titles. It was more of a promotional class and a class for learning, and it's obviously provided a lot of talent. Even looking at now, the likes of yourself and Jamie McDonald, Michael Pickens, Brad Mosen, Shane Van Gisbergen actually ran quarter midgets. There's a lot of guys, a lot of names that I can think of that have run quarter midgets and run well and stepped up into the next classes up and done even better. So we had a really good run. Obviously, my first season we had to start the first 6 meetings off the back, before we could get into the group. And back then there was big fields of quarter midgets, 24 to 28 cars, and which has actually got sort of starting to get back to now, which is good to see. And it was really competitive back then, but it was so fun, and we had a really good run. Eventually I ended up getting probably too big for the quarter midget, for the age I was, and that's what ended up sort of stopping my quarter midget career 1 year early. We went down a year after I finished my quarter midget career actually, and went down to Christchurch, and we won the CTRA New Zealand quarter midget championships, and I hadn't even run a quarter midget I think for a year and a half, so that was pretty cool. It was an awesome experience, and I've got that whole experience and racecraft. It sort of helped to become, I guess, the driver I am today.
Yeah. So at 15 years old, your first season in the TQs takes off. It was a pretty significant one as well at that. So you won your first feature on your first night at Western Springs, and according to your old man, you had a little bit of trouble opening the champagne bottle.
Yeah, that was a night that really sticks out for me in my whole career. Actually, it seems like a long time ago now, but the first night in a brand new car. Obviously, we bought a TQ off. We bought actually Jamie McDonald's TQ. It was a Harris chassis, but we pretty much bought it to get the motor out of it and the running gear, and we put it into a brand new Brecker chassis, which Tim Clark built back then when he was at Sea Mountain. Did an exceptional job at building me a super fast race car right out the box. I had to start both races off the back, and we finished mid-pack both races, and I think we started grid 7 for the feature, and we got up to second, and I was quite lucky. It was just one of those nights where everything went my way. I got up to second place, and Scott Joblin was actually winning the feature, and he was probably a good straightaway length in front of me, and we were only good enough for second that night, and unfortunately he got pulled off for having 2 noise warnings for his car being too loud. So it was just one of those nights where everything went right, and ended up getting the win, but we were still good enough for second. And to come out on your first night on in a new car, being that young too, 15, becoming at the time the youngest ever feature winner of a TQ, and on my first night out it was a pretty significant moment for me, and that's what pretty much started my career off.
To prove that it wasn't just a fluke as well, winning that first night, you went on to win the track championship that year as well, with a night to spare. So it shows that you were consistent and you were consistently fast. Yeah,
I think the second night we went out and we backed it up with a third place, which was, again, we were still, clutching. We couldn't believe it. My goal for the season was just to be top 10, and to have the season we did, we were consistently, I think, in the top 5 in every race. We, I think, podiumed at Western Springs 9 out of the 12 nights in my first season, so we actually racked up quite a lot of prize money too.
That's good.
To win the TQ championship back then was $3,500, so which was a lot of money. And it was just one of those years where you have your bad seasons and you have your good ones, but everything just clicked, went really well, and it was definitely a highlight for sure.
Not long after this, you get noticed and you get picked up by Jeff Harper to run an A-grade midget alongside Lance Beale. How did that moment there influence your career, and where was it heading otherwise if you didn't get picked up?
Yeah, obviously I was very fortunate. There was quite a few car owners around in midgets in that point, and I was obviously I had 3 good years in the TQs, and it got to the point where I couldn't afford. Dad couldn't afford, because obviously I wasn't paying anything. Couldn't afford to put me into the next stage. We actually looked at going sprint car racing. Jamie and Bruce had a spare sprint car at the time that we thought about possibly leasing, and even thought about buying. It was one of his cars from Knoxville, I think he ran. We thought about it, and then we just couldn't really quite make it work. We could probably afford to buy it, but not afford to run it for a season. So, and then, funnily enough, Bruce was actually, McDonald, I've got a lot for him to thank for this too. He started talking to Jeff, and Jeff was obviously noticing me in my last sort of couple of years, and I've got my whole midget career today to really thank to Jeff. He believed in a 17-year-old kid, put me in a car, did lots for me, and really took off from there. And we had a pretty solid first year. I got 1 feature win at Huntley Speedway, so we're pretty happy. And with obviously the car we had, it was a perfect learning car for me, and it's what's taken off for me today. Sorry, I'm probably saying probably 20 times.
You really transformed into the new face of HLR as well. Lance was definitely the face there for a long time, and then as he moved out and you took over, the success that you brought into the team and how well presented you are, how well spoken you are, that really shone in the Speedway community. Yeah, that was one thing I got taught from a young age was, present yourself well, and people will notice you. And sometimes people say you make your own luck in racing, and you make your own things in life too. So it was an awesome thing to be part of such a team with so many. I've been around Speedway so long, had so many good results, and to be alongside a guy like Lance Beale who really helped me a lot, with learning the ropes early, and it was just a really good vibe. At the time, young, didn't really know, wasn't fully mature, obviously racecraft and all that, and to be surrounded by those sorts of people back then is, it was really satisfying, and I really loved every minute of it. And like I say, that's pretty much how I've got to where I am today. You also got a great opportunity early in your career and ran the Sarom 9X, the spikehead pink there in Sydney, and since then you've had regular trips over there with a couple of different car owners. So why don't you chat about the opportunities you've had over there, including with Scott Wilson, the most recent, and how running over there has really helped your career progress? Yeah, it was really good. Jeff, put a deal together with Brett Morris, and we ran a few shows over there. And it helped a lot. We did 2-3 meetings, I think, before our Speedway season started here, and it just helped you, I guess, freshen up and be sharper coming into the first night at Western Springs. And it's something that, I'd like to do more often, travel to Australia and do that even now. But I've got a lot of things to thank,
a lot of people to thank for that, and I'll be forever grateful for every opportunity I've had over there. That obviously had that opportunity, and then I probably had a couple of years where we actually took our own car over there, ran the 50 lapper. I actually won, did well, won a Trans-Tasman race over there with this, back then was the Synergy V8 that I ran for Jeff, and he took me over there for probably a good 3 years straight, and it definitely helped, more laps, more tracks. It definitely, helps you as a driver. Any seat time you have, the more racing you get, the fresher you are. It's just proved now, like with the likes of Michael Pickens, who's doing double duty every night. It's definitely made him sharper, and he's probably in the best form of his career now. So it's something that I look to try and do as many laps as I can.
What was that Synergy car like around a place like Valvoline where you can really wind it up?
Yeah, this Synergy car was, it made a lot of power, but it didn't make a lot of torque, and you had to really rev it to get it to run right. And, we probably didn't have initially the car set up to go with the motor. So back at home at Western Springs, it was quite a bit of a handful, but, with running it at Parramatta on the cushion, it was probably the fastest car, I felt at the time around that place. And, we had a really good run there a couple of nights, had a bit of bad luck, actually had a pretty bad accident down the back straight, ended up in hospital, which was less than ideal, but, we survived and got there. And, obviously I ran a few years there with the Synergy, and, I've had, while we're on the Aussie subject of, obviously like to thank a lot of other people that have made it possible for me to run over there, like the likes of Jason Felicity Bell and Colin Bell. They gave me a shot to run their Mopar SR11 and their Toyota over there, and we had a couple of really good runs and won a 50 lapper at Brisbane and Archerfield, and we had a really good time together. And obviously recently Scott and Jay Wilson gave me an awesome opportunity to come over for the Aussie title back at Murray Bridge the other year, and we had the speed to really probably win that event. We just had a bit of bad luck and things not go away, but it was not just the racing side of it with them. It was they're real two awesome people, and they've got some awesome kids, and just that whole side of it, the family orientated side of it too, is awesome. Obviously accumulated, and Scott and Jade helped me out, taking me to Chili Bowl last year, which was one of the best moments of my life, or in my career, getting to get on the big stage like that. So I'm very appreciative of those sorts of people. It's not easy just flying a guy over to Australia every week and believing in him and stuff. So be forever thankful for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. So we may as well stay on that topic while you're there. So this year you did get the opportunity to go to the Chili Bowl for the first time. So that's obviously something Kiwis dream of. We get to see it every year, but rarely do guys actually ever go over. So you won. Sorry about that. You won a race there as well, which is probably a big deal. It's not the race you wanted to win when you were over there, but you struggled a bit with mechanical failures and some stuff like that. But talk us through that experience.
Yeah, obviously, I got a text from. It all started with I got a text from Scott saying, what are you doing in January? And I sort of thought, well, I'm not really doing anything this year at the moment. It was either a go to the Aussie title text or was it a do something else. And I just always remember I got the text and he was like, well, you reckon you can make it work? And I said, I'll do whatever it takes to make it work. So that's how it all started. We ended up going over there. It's always been a goal of mine, a dream to get over to Chili Bowl. And I've watched it year after year after year from probably when I was 6-7 years old, and I've always seen the likes of Tony Stewart, Brian Clausen, Rico, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, all those guys, and the things they can do in a race car and at an event, and you get there and it's nothing like you see on the TV. It's 10 times better, and the whole atmosphere of the place is electric, and it was a very good memory. But obviously we didn't. I went in there with a pretty open mind of our results that we were going to get. Didn't go there with any expectations. Just I had a goal in my mind at the time, and that was it was reasonably high, but that was just myself, my personal goal. But like really expectation wise, it was just to go there, have fun, and enjoy the experience. And I had a couple of average heat races on my qualifying night, which really hurt us going into the points wise going to thing, and had some bad luck in my second heat, and got into the B main, which we drove from 9th to 2nd, and actually battling for the lead. Got into the A and just got caught up in someone else's mess, and that, which really hurt us and put us back in the field. Won our E main, but unfortunately they reworked the track just before the D, and it just made it too fast to pass. But we still made progress. Well, I think we missed out on the transfer by 2 spots, so we ended up leaving really happy. The whole experience was amazing. I was up there with some pretty amazing people, met some really good people too, and even the likes of just chatting with the likes of Christopher Bell and hanging out with those guys was a pretty cool experience.
So something you alluded to just then, your relationship with Christopher Bell. Not everyone gets to chat with guys like that every week, and you're actually quite good mates with him. Yeah,
he's every time he's the last couple of years, he's pretty much from the first time he came to New Zealand. We had a chat and that, and obviously he didn't come down for a couple of years, and even just putting a few posts up when we went to America when I did midget week. He put a little comment on there saying, "Oh, you coming to Kokomo and watch some sprint car racing tonight and stuff." So it just shows the sort of person he is, that he, no matter who you are, he still likes to talk to you, and that just shows what sort of race car driver and in person that he is. And he's one of my idols. You look at what he's doing now in NASCAR; it's pretty exceptional. And yeah, the last year in New Zealand, he came down obviously and ran, and we had a good talk, and we had a really good talk and hung out in Chili Bowl. He's obviously good mates with Tyler Thomas and Andrew Falker as well, and that's who I was sort of running with at the time. So I remember we had dinner one night after the Chili Bowl racing, and he was telling, we were talking about Kiwi food and American food, and he's saying our food's shit, and I was like, well, your food's just greasy shit. So and as he's mowing down a mozzarella stick. So no, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to hang out with guys like that, and seeing what they're doing now, and knowing them. It's really cool.
Did he offer much advice at the Chili Bowl? I know that there's some pretty radical stuff that goes on there in terms of wheel offsets and some other, like the retarded switch and all of that. So did he actually offer much to help?
Yeah, obviously, at an event like that, you don't want to give too much away to everyone else, but he did offer some words of advice, and pretty much it was just, all he said was, you can do it, man. Like, there's no different to racing Western Springs. These guys here are, you guys, when you race it, got the same quality as pretty much most of the guys up here. So hearing something like that from a guy like that is, is pretty incredible, and it's good that. And he tried to hint at what setups that him and Keith's guys are doing, but they don't give too much away. But yeah, it's just, it was cool. Just even hearing little bits and pieces of what they do is it all helps.
So V8, Esslinger, Mopar, Toyota, you're probably one of the few guys in Speedway who's had the opportunity to run them all. So what kind of things did you notice between the different motors, and is it the kind of thing you can adapt to quickly, or is it, what's it like?
Yeah, obviously probably the biggest one that stands out is the V8 Synergy. That one, it took me a bit to get my head around. The first year we probably struggled a little bit, but the 2 years after that, I think the last season, we won 5 features in a row with that car. We just ended up finding a sweet spot, albeit it was probably 3 years of trying and that. But first year I just went straight from the Synergy to the Esslinger, and it just felt normal. It didn't really feel any different. Obviously, the biggest thing is the weight transfer, and the V8 was a lot different with having one bank out the other side. But and generally, you get to a point when you're racing in your career, when you've been running for that long, it's sort of, you just got to get in and adapt real quickly. Obviously, different motors do different things, but at the end of the day, they all make pretty much the same power and same torque. It's just the way it's delivered is a little bit different, and you got to make some few adjustments to your driving style. But all in all, it's just the same. Just get on the loud pedal and go for it.
Did that experience help when it came to running and helping adjust to the new BB7 that Esslinger's brought out?
Yeah, obviously, the new BB7 was quite different again. It's sort of a combination of all of them, really, and I was actually really surprised on how well it went last year. Obviously being a brand new motor, hasn't really run much, and we didn't, like I say, we had high expectations, but not as high expectations as how we ran. So obviously they've made more improvements to it this year, and obviously we're getting another new motor this year, as well as you. So I'd say with the feedback that we gave last year and what they're going to do to thing, it can only be even better. And reliability, everything was pretty good last year. So I'm really excited to get this thing bolted in and get racing this year.
Good stuff. So we go 10 years on from you getting picked up from Jeff. So you've racked up about 27 odd feature wins. You've been a New Zealand representative multiple times in New Zealand, Australia, and America. When did you feel like you really established yourself nationally and internationally?
It was probably, most people will say you need a good, 3 years. They call it. Well, I know Jeff would call it your apprenticeship in midgets is about 3 years before whether you've got it or not. And probably after that third year in my midget, I felt that I could, start beating some of the best guys. And you got to believe in yourself, otherwise, you're not going to go anywhere. If you don't believe you can win, there's no point you really going out on the racetrack. So, you got to have that belief. And I started getting that belief probably 3 years into my midget career. And I think probably the season that really stood out for me was a year where obviously something clicked and I decided to get really super fit. I think it was 2015 I think it was, and we had a really good season. Brad was obviously running for BSL, and us two battled, I think, just about every race. We were on the podium nearly every night. I think I got second in the 50 lapper that year, third in the international series. That was probably the year that I really established myself as a consistent top 3 runner. Obviously was fortunate enough to get a trip to the States after that. So that was probably the time where I thought that I could definitely foot it with the best.
So anyone who has known you for a long period of time knows how much weight you actually did lose. So was it just racing that inspired you to get into the CrossFit scene? Because it is quite an intense form of fitness. Yeah,
it was that, and it was a bit of everything really. It was sort of like I went through a sort of a year where sort of probably went out too much, party with your friends, and did a little bit of that, and it shows in your racing and all that. And I just decided I wanted to be a bit healthier. One, be healthier, and two, if you got guys like that are putting a lot of money, investing a lot of money into to want results, and so it's up to you as a driver to really do the best you can to your ability too, and show them that you're 100% interested back. You got sponsors and guys investing big money, and they want the results. So I thought, well, it's it's how you should be anyway, but you got to be serious about everything. There's no point doing everything in halves. You got to be pretty serious about even with guys in rugby, stuff like that. You got to be super fit to be at the top of your game, like the All Blacks, etc. So it was just I just needed to obviously sort it out, and it was once that happened, it just mentally, not only physically you're fitter, but mentally you're way fitter too. Everything happens a lot slower. You can see things quicker. It was just a thing. I probably, to get an idea, I think the heaviest I was probably maybe 83 kilos, and at my lightest I was 68. So it was a fair amount of weight that I lost, and it was probably the best decision and thing I ever made. And it's people, it sort of opened up people's eyes, I guess, too, and said, well, this guy's pretty serious about what he wants to do, and that's what sort of helped, I guess, my career. Followed my career.
That's 15 kgs out of the race seat.
Yeah.
When you think about it, did you notice that in car setup or anything like that? Did you have to adjust?
Yeah, to be fair, it probably did. Like with the Synergy and myself at that time, we were we had quite a heavy car, and then obviously debuted a brand new Aggressor with a brand new Esslinger from Esslinger Engineering and BSL Racing. They supplied us some Jeff bought a motor through them, and obviously a lighter car, lighter motor, lighter driver. It just fitted, and that was the season that just really turned my career around, I guess, and it's just spring-footed from there. Obviously since then I've had a couple of up and down seasons, but I think we've got a really good thing going here now, and I'm just really super excited to get back out there this year.
That's good, me too. So you had success in the States your first time over there. You got that heat win at Quincy, and you made, it was something like 5 out of 6 midget week features. So how was that experience for you, coming from the small bull rings in New Zealand out to the big real battle tracks,
Yeah, it was definitely an eye opener, especially USAC, where you pretty much got to the track, you did 3 hot laps, and then you had to go out on time trial, and your time trial was literally your whole night. Like everything rode on that. Your time trial laps was so important. We were fortunate, I guess, to go up with BSL Racing at the time. Obviously, I was with HLR Racing and Jeff, and we sort of worked together. And obviously Calvin and that gave us some of the gear sets and sort of base setups for some of the tracks. So we had a bit of a fair idea, but we sort of didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, I guess. And yeah, right from the word go, it was sort of good that we got to run Power Eye Week first, and just sort of get into the swing of things. But we put a brand new motor in the car up there, which Calvin and the guys up there helped build. So it was ready to go when we got there, and yeah, I guess it was good just getting a front row grid for the first heat. You could just get out there and sort of learn the track and do your own thing. And
I believe it was actually you and Brad, wasn't it, on the front row? It was a hell of a battle that heat.
Yeah, it was actually sticks out of my mind. It was an exciting heat race, and it actually set the Americans on their feet. They were pretty excited. There was not really much else going on the heat besides me and Brad banging wheels and racing hard. All the way from New Zealand. We've been racing each other hard all year, and we get up there and typical grid 1, grid 2. Standard issues. To go 12 hours across the world and
still end up right next to each other.
Right next to each other. That was just how the whole season went. So it was cool. And fortunately enough, we got the heat win. And it just gave me a lot of confidence going forward in the week. Finished 5th that night. So for my first ever Power Eye night, and to get a top 5 was pretty special. But we obviously didn't really want to get too hot head or anything, because we knew the competition was going to get tough. And it was just one of those nights where everything went right. So every other night after that, I think we were in the top 10 every night, made every Power Eye feature bar 1. And that followed into USAC week, which was super tough. Like I said, said earlier, is 3 hot laps on a track you've never raced at before, and then straight into time trials, and that pretty much sets your whole night. And we, out of an average of about 30 to 40 cars a night, we time trialed on average, I think between a sort of 8th, I think was my best, and 15th, which was pretty. We were pretty happy with that. It means that all you had to do was finish top 4 in your heat, and you're straight through to the feature. Obviously, you get one heat, and so we were happy. We made every USAC feature we started. Finished 7th from grid 19, I think, in Lawrenceburg, and that track was unreal. The first time I pretty much drove out the gate and went down the thing, it was probably the first time ever in a race car that I've actually dropped my nuts. It was it was pretty scary coming down the banking. It's you watch it on TV, but nothing compares to when you get there. It's super steep, probably twice as steep as the likes of Parramatta, if you guys know and you've been there. And it's got long straights. It was the first 3 laps was pretty scary, hot laps, but it was actually the track I felt ended up feeling the most comfortable. And we drove really well. Like I said, we came from 19th to 7th in the feature and got my first USAC top 10, which we were really stoked about. And yeah, obviously missed out on the last night, one of my favourite tracks. Watching my favourite tracks, Kokomo, we were pretty bummed to get rained out that night. But yeah, to have a week where we finished finished every feature in USAC and made every feature was a pretty good achievement.
There's a photo of you at Lawrenceburg under throttle, and you're next to this big old fluffy cushion. So what was that like? Was that daunting? Was it, because you've raced for, it was probably like about 8 years by that point. You've run a cushion before, but that's something else. Yeah,
at that point I'd run the cushion at Parramatta, but the way the tracks were at Western Springs, we never really had a cushion as such. We had, at that point, Western Springs, we had more ruts than anything else, and so it was definitely a challenge, especially the speed you were going. You had to be super smooth. You could make no mistakes, and it was mainly it was sort of like driving a sprint car, I guess. You had to be not much turning at all. You just had to be super smooth and really pinpoint accurate. And if you watch some videos on YouTube, you'll see if you get it wrong at Lawrenceburg, you end up going for a big one. So yeah, that's what sort of made it even more rewarding to be able to get there and run a cushion like that, and and do well.
How about car setup? Well, did you guys struggle at the start of the night in terms of car setup?
Yeah, we did struggle quite a lot actually. We just the car obviously was aggressive car was built mainly for New Zealand tracks and stuff like that. Pretty wild and rough, and not the sort of slick glassy tracks that go up to a big cushion. So we sort of struggled the whole week really to get the car to where I wanted it to be. But we actually got some help from the late Brian Clausen and Rusty Coons. They came over and said, you're struggling, and it was really cool. They pretty much told us what to put on the car, just something really basic. And even though they ran a spike chassis, it actually works pretty good. And we didn't really touch much the rest of the night. And I had that ended up being the best result. So that was real cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you've run all these tracks. What's your favourite? Tough question.
Yeah, tough question. I'll probably name three. Definitely Parramatta, Valvoline Raceway, Lawrenceburg, and Western Springs. Obviously, you can't go past Western Springs. It's everything about Western Springs is amazing. The track, the atmosphere, everything's just so good. So, I mean, I couldn't really pick one out of the three, but those would be my top three tracks.
So easily your biggest supporter is your old man. I mean, he's been there since day one. He's supported you throughout your whole career, and every time you talk to him, I mean, he couldn't be prouder of you. He can never shut up, So with his health scare a few years ago, it must put into perspective how lucky you are to have him with you.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through some pretty tough times in the last 3 years, and like I say, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if it wasn't for all the time and copious amounts of money that Dad spent on me over the years. So I'll always be forever grateful for that. But like I say, we've had a few tough times in the last 3 years, but he's tough. He's a tough old bugger, so he's climbed out of that, and he's back to being fit and strong again. And obviously, it affected the last. I still had, I think, 2 races to go in that season. It affected it a little bit, and I actually decided to not race one night, just for the fact that because your head's got to be in the game, and but like I say, he's been my biggest supporter, and I'll be forever thankful for everything he's done. And you just, with people that put so much time and effort into your racing, you've got to be real supportive of them. And I've tried to help him and support him as much as I can too. So yeah, it's really cool.
You've been consistently competitive throughout the international series for several years now. You talked about after about your third year in, you felt like you could really compete. You finished on the podium for the 50 lapper and the BC 39 race. Are those your biggest achievements?
Yeah, I'd say second place in the 50 lapper back. I think my last year, second to last year with Jeff, was probably my biggest achievement. It was actually a race that I could have won, but I just chose the wrong line. And Jeff gave me probably the best car all year on that night, and it was just sort of the driver sort of stuffed it up a little bit really, just choosing the wrong line. I got past Michael at one point and then just left the door open for him again, and so that was sort of, even though I feel was my biggest achievement to date, it was still a bit sour. It left me a bit sour because I knew that I had the car and the package to win the biggest race in the Southern Hemisphere at the time. So they will always be there, but it was real special to be on the podium for the inaugural BC 39 race. We ran third. That was a pretty special night for me. Obviously, I wasn't as close to Brian as what some people were, but he helped me out a lot in America, and he would always come and chat to me whenever he could. So that was cool.
There's a pretty cool photo of you. It was actually your profile picture on Facebook for quite a long time, that photo of you next to Clausen and Tracy Hines. I mean, they're two legends of our sport, really. What's it like knowing that you are in that calibre?
You sort of don't think about it too much. You just sort of, myself, you just got to get on and, do the job you're doing. And, at the end of the day, as professional as they are and as good as they are, they're just another driver on the racetrack. They all make mistakes too, like we all do. And I guess you got to sort of put that away, but it's, seeing that photo, like I say, I had it as my picture for a long time, and it's quite cool to see that, Brian being the newer guy on the block, and the talent that he has, and then you see Tracy Hines, who's won Chili Bowls, who's been raced every class and multiple USAC champion. It's seeing yourself on there is pretty cool, but you try to stay pretty humble about all that sort of thing. Don't try to get too carried away, because if you do, then it can change all in a heartbeat.
Try and wait for the end. Evaluate at the end how well you were. Yeah. So take me back. Lap 1 of the Boxing Day feature, 2017. You set the altitude record at Western Springs. Yeah,
it wasn't one of my finer moments at Western Springs. We made, I think, the 1 news, the 3 news, the paper, everything. got a bit of a YouTube hit. Yeah, it wasn't my final moment at Western Springs. Obviously I've had a few crashes as everyone else has in their time, and I was just fortunate enough that the safety gear we have these days, and the car I was driving at the time for Wayne Green, credit to him and his team that built a safe race car for me. Butler built seats, kept me safe too. So I was very fortunate that I came out of that, because it was a pretty big hit, and to come out of it just winded and actually go out and race 3 nights later was a testament to the team that I was with at the time, and yeah, it was a pretty scary moment. But to be fair, they all crashes pretty much feel the same. But I'm sure you could elaborate on your little crash a little wee while ago too.
I'd rather not. A lot of people will actually never experience something like that. It's a feeling that you can't actually put into words. But can you try? Because that was something else. That wasn't it wasn't violent or anything. It just rose and then it fell. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just the night was sort of just started on a bad foot, just having a bit of bad luck, and I was just at the back minding my business, and then just made a wrong call to go right when another car went right, and that was all she wrote, and that's just racing sometimes. But I didn't actually realise the extent of how high and that I went until I watched the replay on the infield afterwards, and everyone, your dad on the crash crew came and it was like everyone was asking me, like, you're right, like it was like, I know that's their standard procedure, but it was like it seemed like more urgency to get to me, because they were all quite worried, and I was sort of like, I wasn't really knocked out or dazed or anything. I was just winded from the impact of landing quite hard, and then I got out and it didn't feel big because I obviously hit the fence, and it was quite a soft, I guess, impact on the fence, but I didn't realise how high I got until I watched the replay, and I thought, man, I'm pretty lucky to walk out of that without any major injuries. So, and
without going out of the stadium too. I mean, that's probably the closest we've had for a long time.
Yeah, it's not really a record I want, but I guess it's all advertising at the end of the day. But yeah, it's definitely not the thing I wanted. But hey, these things happen in motorsport, and it's just a credit to the whole crash crew. The safety gear that we have these days. You have very minimal massive injuries, only freak accidents that you can get hurt. So it's a testament to all the safety gear we have.
What do you think was the worst wreck of your career?
That's a hard one. I mean, I'd like to say
I know that Valvoline one was a big one.
Yeah, probably the one that hurt the most, and the one that sticks in my mind as a pretty big one, was the one at Valvoline Speedway a few years back. Yes, just end of the straight, full speed, rotor wheel, ended up barrel rolling into the fence, and it was just I hopped out of the car feeling all right, but then I wasn't too good when I got back to the trailer and had a really, really bad headache. And I guess that's the crash. I've never actually been hurt, touch wood, in a crash at all. Just that was the one that really hurt the most, and I obviously went to hospital for that to get x-rays and get checked over. So that was probably the worst crash I've had, as in the sense that it actually hurt quite a lot.
Well, for those who don't know, I know a lot of my friends actually tune in for these. At Valvoline Speedway, it's a track without a wall, basically. So there's a piece of banking which rolls off to a downward piece of banking, and then it probably goes for how long? Probably 50 metres or so?
Yeah, I'd say a good 30 to 40 metres on the corner exits and corner entry. And another crash that sticks to mind was Brad Mosen running a Jack Berry car. He went from turn 1 to turn 4 and just kept going, and that's sort of what happened with me. The crash started halfway down the straight, but I ended up flipping into the bank at about halfway down turn 2. So, and the speed you go in there just accentuates everything, so it just makes it 10 times worse.
Well, it's something that we're glad everyone's all right from. I mean, Reid Mackay had that terrible one a couple of years ago at Valvoline, so it makes you realise how lucky you are whenever you walk away from something like that. A sour topic, which I know you probably don't want to talk about, but you've been really close to winning the New Zealand Midget title a couple of times. So, I mean, the one at Western Springs, that was probably just pure bad luck on behalf of someone else, and the Nelson one was pretty similar. It was just a small mistake that let it get away. Is that the number one thing that you're chasing now?
Yeah, most definitely. It's been... Obviously, everyone wants to win a New Zealand title, and it's getting tougher and tougher every year. The competition's getting tougher. And obviously, with Michael, there's so many guys that can win, and it's tough every year. And that year that at Western Springs was the best shot I had at winning. I had a really good couple of heat races. We made good ground, and I actually had the measure, like the one night of the year I actually had the measure of Michael and was cleared out, and we had a really good battle. And when you're having a good battle with the best midget driver in Australasia and New Zealand scene and pretty much ever, you're on form that night. And obviously we made contact, and I started getting a flat tire, and then leading the last sort of few laps and then get knocked out the way we did was pretty heartbreaking. But yeah, that's at the end of the day, that's racing. And we at the time, I was pretty angry. You get back to the pits, you calm down, and you sort of think back, and although you had the speed to win and all that, which is the thing that you sort of, me personally, I sit back, I get back into the pits, and I think, well, at least you weren't slow, at least you didn't crash and you were slow. So you crashed or whatever happened, you were fast and you knew that you had the pace to win. It was pretty heartbreaking. And then obviously Nelson, that was pretty much all my fault really. Just made too many mistakes at the end of the race, and I'll take the blame for that one. Jeff gave me a good car. We ran an exceptional race, and obviously that was the year that Pickens was in the C-mount car that he'd won nearly every feature in all year, and to actually pass him and get in front of him in that situation was it gave me a lot of confidence. And then just on a late race yellow, we just the car just went off a little bit, and I just pushed too hard and made an error and let him get back by me, and we ended up finishing fourth in the end. Just made too many mistakes then, and it's just that's why I'm pretty determined to eliminate all those mistakes and make sure we have a really good car and put ourselves in the right position at the right time to win a race. And that's something I'm really focusing on for going forward to this year.
This year we head down there for our New Zealand Grand Prix and Ruapuna for our New Zealand title. So at Nelson, you finished fourth in the New Zealand title, and then Ruapuna, I think it was a fifth or something, or it might have been fourth as well. Actually.
Yeah, I finished fourth at Ruapuna.
Yeah, fourth
too.
as well. So they're two tracks that you are fast at. So that must leave you quite excited for those major championships that are coming up this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back down to the South Island. We don't get to tour there much. So to get down to Nelson again, a track where we actually ran really good at, and I believe the way the car we have now is an even better package with the Bullet chassis and the new BB7. So I'm really excited to see what we can do this year. Last year, first year with BSL, I was pretty stoked with the results we came away with, and I think we just have a little bit more luck go away, and I can get the job done myself. I'm confident that Calvin and Glenn, will have our cars pretty hooked up, and Spike Chassis builds a superb, obviously Bullet chassis, and I think this year is probably our best shot, both of us going forward to win that New Zealand title, either or. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting back down to Ruapuna. I actually really like it down there. The track's nice and wide and racy. You can get a big cushion too. So it's exciting.
Something which I guess only the guys inside know about is how good the BSL team culture is. It's a team where we have a lot of fun among how highly competitive everyone here is. Yeah, exactly, and it sort of showed last year. Every team has a different culture, and it was I had 7 great years with Jeff. But some things you just need to change, and I obviously had 1 year where I sort of didn't know what was happening, what was doing. I pieced something together at the last minute with Wayne and that, and did a few meetings. But it just, when you're not fully focused on it, you worry about other things. It affects your driving, and coming in here really excited me. Obviously running for Bill and with Glenn and Calvin on the spanners, it's I've just fitted in like a glove really, and hanging out with guys like yourself and just the way the team atmosphere is, it just as a driver makes you more relaxed on race day, and it's definitely shows fitted straight in, had some good results straight away. So that's why we've spent a year all together now, so I think we can even top that again, and going forward with a couple of nice brand new race cars out there should be good. How would you describe your driving style? I asked that to Jeremy the other day, and he didn't know how to answer it. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'd say definitely more of definitely more on the aggressive style. I mean, especially in New Zealand, you've got to be pretty elbows up to get around anywhere, and it's sort of, I guess, the style you're accustomed to. But I guess in probably the last 3 years, my driving style's changed a little bit. I've learned to, I guess, try to go a little bit slower to go faster, which is, you sort of learn off guys that race sprint cars and stuff. And watching Michael, that year he won all the races in the C-mount car, he just drove the car so exceptionally straight, and sometimes, slower is faster. And yeah, I guess the last 3 years I've adjusted my driving style a little bit, and I've, starting to see some really good results. And yeah, it's something you just got to keep adjusting, keep going with the times, I guess. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, definitely more on the aggressive side. I mean, yeah, you've got to, I like getting up on the wheel, attacking the cushion, but I guess the last couple of years I've actually learned to run the bottom a lot more, which I don't really like. I hate nannering around the bottom, but sometimes it's, you got to follow where the track is and go where the other guys aren't. So, and I had some good success on the bottom this year actually, late in races. So yeah, it's a toss up, but yeah, definitely like the elbows up aggressive style.
A lot of the time it wasn't even the bottom, it was the middle as well, which, I mean, it's not often that someone can actually get the middle going. And pretty much all year but even before Christmas on, you were the first one to find it in almost every feature. Yeah,
it was quite strange actually. Like, my car didn't like the cushion as much as like the likes of yours and other guys, and so I just sort of didn't really feel too comfortable up there, which is against everything that I go against. Because I mean, I love running the cushion. It's elbows up. It's honestly the best feeling ever, banging the cushion and running it full full blast. So for me, that's what I'm sort of saying, like adjusting my style to try and run different areas of the track where I wouldn't usually go. I learnt that I found a middle, and I actually got good gains out of it last year. So it's something we've got to keep an eye on the track this year and see what it does. But it's good to know that we got a car that works everywhere, and I think this year will be even stronger again. So I'm really looking forward to getting back out there. Obviously, opening night can't come soon enough, and yeah, it's cool. It's just cool to be part of this team and this environment, and it's exceptional.
It really is about, I think this year was actually your 10th year in the midget class. So what's the number one thing you've noticed that's changed the most over that decade?
Number one would be the competitiveness. Like, back when I first started, there was 3-4 guys that could win a feature. Obviously you had Michael and Brad and Shane. They were the main three, and pretty much they did all the winning and all the podium getting and all that. And then you obviously had the Americans come over, and that would add another element to it. But now, I mean, I believe there's any one of about 8-9 drivers that are out there now, and even going forward this year, that can win a feature. So the competition gets tougher every year. The Americans that come down are tougher and more experienced every year. I mean, we say it every year, this year's going to be tougher, but it is. It gets tougher every year. That's probably the main thing that I've noticed the change. Everyone's machinery, everyone's gears, the same, if not as good as anyone else's. So I mean, that just puts in perspective where the class is at.
I mean, back in the day, it used to be a real disconnect between the gear that we had down here and the stuff that they had up there. But I mean, now you're getting guys like Larson and Bell and all of that, and they're coming down here and they're getting into almost the exact same package as they've got up there.
Yeah, and that's what makes it hard. They do 100 races a year, and they come down and get the same, if not better, car down here than what they run up there, even, because their cars are built not really to last. They're built for quick succession. They do a lot of quick fire racing, and they get battled around pretty hard. But the cars that they run down here are exceptional. They have all good gear, and it makes it even tougher again when they come down here, and they just have to hop in and go for gold. But it's every year. It's when having those guys down there, it just raises the bar. And usually after every international series, you see a little bit of a step up in the New Zealand drivers. Just one learning and watching what they do.
What about format? I mean, format's something that you've experienced through what we have here, our 2 heat straight to a feature system, the USAC system where it's a pill draw, time trial, 1 heat race, then semis and stuff, and then the power race stuff, which is just a pill draw straight to a heat. So do you have a favourite? Do you have one that you feel suits your driver style? Do you have anything in particular?
Probably the system that we use down here is probably my favourite, but too, I believe it's sort of the fairest. You get a front and a back. You're mixed up with everyone, all different people. But I mean, every format's got its downside. I mean, there's no perfect format. I really like the USAC format. It's all on qualifying, but so all you got to do is they invert the heats, and then all you got to do is make the top 4 or the top 5 in the heat just to get in the feature, and you're in. You don't really have to race too. I mean, the racing's hard, don't get me wrong, but it's not like a 14-car heat at Western Springs where you've got to try and come from the back. It's the heat races I felt in USAC were tough, but it was easier to get in the show because you sort of there's only 8-9 cars in a heat, and all you had to do was make the top 4, and depending on where you qualified, you sort of started in that top 5. So I definitely believe the heat racing down at Western Springs is probably the toughest you'll ever get anywhere around the world, and that's what makes our format quite different to anyone else's. But I quite like the 50 lap format, how we have qualifying and then we have an A and a B dash, and it gives you the opportunity, if you have a bad qualifying, you can still make your way up through the field. So that's probably one of the better formats, I believe.
So that's all I've got down on paper, but I mean, I've really enjoyed listening to your story. It's one that I've enjoyed for a long time. I mean, you've been, especially, I was Hayden with a 27 as well, coming through quarter midget, so you were kind of my idol in a way as well. I mean, it was the same kind of as weird as it is. We were the same pattern coming through. We went quarter midgets to TQs and stuff. So actually hearing the whole story of how you came through and how determined you are, how successful you've been, it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously I'd like to be more successful. I quite easily could have had more success in the past, but
could have been Hayden the sprint car driver.
Yeah, I mean that's to be honest, that's still a goal of mine. I do want to get into sprint cars, and obviously I've got unfinished business in the midgets, but it's a goal of mine to get into a sprint car at some stage. Obviously it's tough down in New Zealand with the way the tracks we have, but and like you say, referring to me, like you, as like I could sort of see a little bit of, I guess, a weird way of saying it, myself and you when you were in TQs, like how you had no fear, you'd bicycle into the corner and bounce back down and just gas it around even more, and to see you actually get that number 1 was pretty impressive. I know you got a lot of people talking. I know car owners and that wanted to, I know Jeff wanted to hire you. Lots of people wanted, seeing potential in you, I guess not just for who you are as a driver, but you're pretty well reserved as well. So it's been cool chatting, and you're an awesome teammate, and I'm really looking forward to this season.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So there you have it. That was almost an hour-long interview with Hayden Williams. It was really enjoyable to discuss his trips to America, along with his experiences in New Zealand and Australia, as he's one of the veterans now in our sport. So that was really cool, and I hope you all enjoyed that. Coming up next week, I intend on sitting down with Brayton Davison to discuss his America trip, racing with the ASCS 360 Sprint Car Series, and his plans for this year, along with his past career. So as always, thank you for listening, and this has been the Stagger Tapes.